I think it's important to understand sibling sexual abuse because it's so common. It's the most common form of intrafamilial sexual abuse, but there's very little research out there.
People don't assume that it happens between siblings. They always assume it's parents and children or uncles. It's always an adult.
I think it's just getting people to understand that it happens more than people realise, and sort of making it accessible to people so people can realise, actually, I'm not the only one, it's not just me, this does happen to other people.
Because it's a taboo, it feels taboo because it's hard in the family and it's also hard in society to talk about it. So we need to start paying attention.
It can't happen if it's exposed. It can only happen in silence.
Sibling sexual abuse is the psychological, physical and sexual abuse of one sibling to another. It's important to consider what sibling means. So it can be birth sibling, adoptive sibling, foster sibling.
It's a really interesting sibling relationship, and we know that this is one of the longest relationships that people have in most of their lives. And societally, we have a sense that that relationship will always be positive. So the concept of being abused by a sibling is really difficult for people to process.
It's understanding that there's more layers to it when it's a member of your family, so like when it's your brother or your sister or whoever's inflicting that harm. And just a lack of awareness and understanding about the long-term implications that childhood sexual abuse has, particularly sibling sexual abuse, just because of the complexities.
There's this pressure for them to keep quiet, to be silent. And so they can carry this enormity for years. People, especially parents at times, when they find out about it, they can dismiss it with the child.
Quite often, a child who has been abused doesn't know whether they can tell their parents. They can be concerned that they might go into care, that their sibling might go to jail or something.
You know, when we talk to survivors of sibling sexual abuse, once they realise that that's sexual abuse that they've experienced, they're also trying to deal with the huge fallout within a family.
Because we're told if you tell, all the family will fall apart. Well, that means that they don't really love us, because otherwise they'd protect us. So we think we're not worthy of protection.
They fear a hostile environment will be created if they were to tell somebody. Would they be believed? Would they be blamed? Feeling that they would be blamed.
So in terms of adults who have experienced sibling sexual abuse as a child, not only is it about the abuse that they have suffered, it's about how they have managed to deal with or maybe not deal with that abuse as they have aged and how that shaped them.
So there are various long-term implications of sibling sexual abuse. Survivors often experience delayed trauma, so one can become quite depressed, quite anxious.
So trauma is when something happens that overwhelms our mind, our brains, the psyche. It feels overwhelmed and somebody can become dysregulated because of trauma.
It ruins people's lives, and not just in their childhoods. It ruins so much of their mental health, their physical health, their relationships, their ability to work.
For me, personally, it was a choice of either tell my family or end my life. That was the point that I got to. And I didn't want to die. I didn't want him to take that as well. He'd taken so much already in terms of like me as a person, so my confidence, my self-esteem, the fact that I didn't feel like I deserved anything.
So quite often when someone discloses their sibling sexual abuse, they've gone to a service for another reason. So that can be general anxiety, depression. Professionals need to be aware that, You know, there might be something behind what they're initially presenting for.
The particular issue with sibling sexual abuse is most people don't recognise it, most people don't see it, most victims don't come forward and report it, and a lot of the services that victims will go on to use, either professional or charitable services, don't always know how to best respond to it.
We want to provide a really open space for people where we can, and understand that how we respond as professionals so that sibling sexual abuse disclosure can have a really positive or negative impact on that survivor.
So I think practitioners need to be aware of the language they're using within the therapeutic setting. Another thing that professionals should consider is that it can be girls abusing. So we generally assume that boys are more abusive.
It's just as severe if it's same-sex or female to male abuse, just because it doesn't involve stereotypical types of abuse. It doesn't make it not the same.
So as practitioners, we need to be really aware of the person who's sitting in front of us, what they might need from us in terms of language and approach, and just be really open to listening to what they're going to feel most comfortable with.
Be respectful, especially culturally, is very important, because there's several other reasons culturally why a client wouldn't disclose.
Sexual abuse affects everyone. Communities, individuals. It's not a class issue. It's not a race issue. We have to find ways to support everyone.
See this person who's sitting in front of you as a unique individual, and don't feel that you have the answer for everything, because we don't.
In a trauma-informed way, we're looking at not what's wrong with you or what have you done, but what's happened to you. And with the context of sibling sexual abuse, we really need to consider how potentially more difficult it would have been for that child or young person to disclose, and how that might have further shamed or isolated them.
And one of the key points is it's important to believe the clients when they come to you, to keep an open mind, to not to judge, and to be supportive.
I think one of the most important things was feeling believed and feeling heard. It was like, what you're feeling is valid, and like your voice does matter, and what you've been through does matter.
Don't doubt them, they are not making it up. It's something that they've had inside them for a long, long time. So it's actually a privilege that they've told you, because the benefit of telling is huge. It's liberating. It's as if suddenly you become well and alive and learning how to really love and be loved and trust. It's a weight off your mind. It's a weight off your life. It's as if life only begins once you've started that process.